Putting the human into technology with Gethin Ellis and Mark Williams. Here at gethinellis.com, whilst we know physical fitness is essential, our mental health is vital too, and our podcast is all about putting the human back into technology, aka the PHIT Podcast. Now, one thing we can probably all agree on is the last year or so has been unprecedented. So we wanted to seek out the views of technology leaders, business owners, consultants, and many others from a range of different businesses and organisations to discuss with them the impacts on their business, on their humans, and on their technology, and how they see the future unfolding. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Alistair Sergeant. All right then, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the PHIT Podcast. And joining Mark and myself this week is Alistair Sergeant from Equantiis. And Equantiis are a digital consultancy that help organisations develop the technology that underpins their business strategy. But I'll get Alistair. Alistair, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So just to kick us off, Alistair, just tell us a little bit about your business, your job role, what you do.
Yep, so hi, I'm Alistair Sergeant, I'm CEO of Equantiis. So Equantiis are a digital consultancy. We help organisations make the best use of technology. And by what we mean by that is we look at their strategy, how they're delivering customer experience, and how they're running operationally. And so we bring all that together and work out what technology they then need to be able to deliver their overall strategy.
Cool.
I probably should have mentioned this before, but you've started a new venture relatively recently, Alistair, haven't you? And I've been following it a little bit on LinkedIn. But that's is that something to do with robotics or something along those sorts of lines?
Yeah, we started up last year a technology part of the business, which is considered a business process automation platform. So basically running robotics process automation as a service. So organisations that have peaks and troughs of heavy manual processing, we have a platform that they can outsource the whole lot. It's all automated by bots, no need to change any technology, and it's an on-demand service that we've created.
Yeah, wow. So I guess just for our listeners and viewers, perhaps, obviously you and I, probably the right way to say it would be we know of each other and we've met and we've had a conversation or two over the years. And if I remember it correctly, we met actually on around the project that Gethin was talking about off air, with us when we were both talking at a seminar several years ago. And I guess what I wanted to ask or say was that I know of you in the context of should we call it membership type organisations back as it was then? And obviously I know I think there's a question coming up that we agree wholeheartedly on in around the definition of something in a minute. But what other sectors are you guys involved with now? Because I know a lot has developed since we first met several years ago.
Yeah, so we're still working quite a lot with membership organisations. Anyway, there's still a huge amount of work to do in that sector, but we are moving more into helping out charities. We're doing a lot of work with universities, and we still have our commercial practice as well. So where we're looking after some financial services clients and some legal clients. They're the main sectors that we work in.
Cool. Okay. Very good. Shall I ask the next question?
Yeah, go for it, mate. Go.
So we've been saying, prefacing this question with thinking about the last year, but it's not really, is it? It's not quite 2 years now, but it's a strong 18 months or so since all of this stuff was kicking off. But what? I'll ask this in the context of both you as your organisation itself, but also clearly you're a consultancy and a provider. You work with a lot of other organisations. Feel free to answer it either or both for you and all the clients that you see and you've observed about the sorts of lessons and whether those are people lessons or technology lessons or I don't know. Office infrastructure lessons, whatever that may be. So, what sort of things do you think you've learned that are relevant and important, and how you're going to take forward those things being taken forward in for your future going forwards?
I think the key lessons that I've learned, and actually my clients I'm working with them on, is just being a lot more reactive in a lot quicker time. So, we specifically in the industries that we work in, they are notorious for being quite slow and way behind on where the rest of the world is. So actually the biggest lesson learned is we can't afford to keep stalling and being tied up in politics and bureaucracy. We've got to get on with some of these changes that are much needed. It's also just embracing change. It's hard when change is forced upon you. But actually, if we go in with a bit of an open mind that change is a good thing, it actually turns out to be a positive solution in the end.
Do you think that there's a word I use, a couple of words I use quite often when I'm providing advice to our client set, which those words are clarity and certainty, and it feels to me as though historically, when you talk about I talk about certainty or clarity, people think that means you need to be certain and know about every bit of stuff that's relevant to taking that decision. Where actually, it's never been that for me. It's always been, fine, look, if you don't know and you need to take a risk, as long as you know that you're taking the risk, isn't that fine, and isn't that the way forward? So I was just thinking about your answer, really, because the sorts of organisations that we both work with, yes, they do like to take their time, and they kind of like to know, don't they, that they're making the right decision, and sometimes that's analysis by paralysis, to quote a phrase. Do you see it? I mean, you work with way more organisations than I do. Do you see a change in people's mindsets then, that they're perhaps more willing to say, yeah, I understand we're in this position, it's clear, and I recognise that we don't know enough, but I'm still going to make that decision?
Unfortunately not. I'd like to say yes. And it's actually, I was talking to someone last week about it. I still, my biggest concern that we have within those sectors that we work in is the leadership being ready to actually make these type of changes. And you guys will probably know this as well. And it's why I hate the phrase digital, because as soon as someone says digital, it's an IT problem. We'll forget about it. But actually, if we don't get the leadership right, where we're embracing change and it's okay to take a risk, and actually you as leaders need to broaden your knowledge on things that the rest of the world are doing, I think you're in for a really bumpy ride. I really do.
That's viewers take note, I guess, is the commentary from that.
It is well, just what you said is quite interesting. It's just because the sort of, from my take on it, it probably differs a little bit to yours, Alistair, if I'm being honest. The organisations I've been working with, in terms of that sort of the change, just call it change, not digital, let's call it the business change that's been needed out of the pandemic. I've seen organisations that I've both been providing services for and provided service to in the past. They've actually had to change quite dramatically over the last 18 months. And really, that change was enforced from about a week out from lockdown, when you could literally see it coming. It's like, what we're going to do, we need to go and buy 500 laptops here, because everyone traditionally comes into the office 5 days a week, and everything's set up for that type of setup. And they underwent that change really, really quite quickly, and they managed to do it quite well. But that was, you said, that was like kind of enforced upon them. It's like, well, we either do it or we die here. It's one or the other. So it's this, or it's nothing. But what, for me, the interesting bit is for those organisations, what they're going to do as things start to revert to some form of normality. Because I can't see the one organisation I'm thinking of, they got 250 staff that used to go to the city in London every day, 5 days a week, to do insurance, and suddenly they have to work from home. And now they've got all these staff that are like, well, hang on, I don't need to be on this pack tube at 8 o'clock on a Friday morning, or 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock on a Friday night. I'll just work at home on a Friday. It was fine it's been fine for 18 months, and we got probably more work done in those 18 months. Because from my aspect, I've been really busy in that time. So it's just been interesting to see how organisations have dealt with it, and it's quite fascinating. You've got a slightly different take, which is always good to see, really.
Yeah, well, I think the key part there is, as you say, once we come out of into more of a BAU type environment, when it's not forced upon them, can they be reactive as they needed to be 18 months ago? And I think that's going to be the key part there, of actually there are some fantastic achievements that those organisations have done in that 18 months, and we can't dismiss that. They have stepped up to it, but it shouldn't take a pandemic in order to step up and make those changes, right? So what happens when we move back is really the key part, and have we got the right leadership in place to keep us going? That's the bit that I don't think we have.
I don't think in the round we're disagreeing with you on that point at all. I think the leadership point is a perennial worry, frankly, and that's not meant in an unkind way, but frankly, just because you've been to use a sporting analogy, just because you've been the best centre forward or best centre back or whatever, doesn't make you the best manager of the team, does it? Right?
Yeah.
And I think it's that kind of thing. I guess I'm sort of wondering about a couple of the sectors that we mentioned. One around membership and one around so the whole student type whatever form of higher education that is. I suppose membership has there's a level of benefit there that says you've got a predictable income coming in from your membership fee, and as long as they know what their purpose is and that there's value associated with that purpose, then perhaps they can take the right decisions. In the world of education, though, I mean, wow, these students can be anywhere now. They don't have to be even in the UK, let alone, obviously, well, I don't know what you will know better than I, whatever the percentage of so-called foreign students are in the UK and all that kind of thing. They could be anywhere, couldn't they? And I imagine the universities have to really think long and hard about what their proposition is, if you like, to stay in the market, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a real challenge there because actually, if you think around, a lot of them will want, especially internationals, will want a digital experience. And that's more than just getting on a Zoom call, right? There's a lot more that goes into it. And I think that's been underestimated quite hugely because there is a shift happening of distance-based learning versus classroom-based learning. And actually, the platforms aren't there to support that yet. It needs huge investment, but equally, the institutes are hampered with a huge amount of technical debt that they're going to have to get sorted out as well. They have a bigger issue in that you have frontline student services technical pieces to get sorted, but actually they've got their operational and professional services of actually what runs the institute that are typically 10 to 15 years behind. And we certainly haven't seen one institute yet make any good changes in their back office systems that would stand up to make these new changes.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Let's move this on, shall we, Gav?
Yeah, right. So my next question, I say, sort of related to the stuff we've been talking about, really. But the question is, in terms of users, and that could be clients or your own, have they grown in confidence with technology during and since lockdown?
I definitely think we're seeing users adapting it a lot more than we would have before. But then, saying that, I think the technology that we use nowadays is a lot more intuitive. When your Teams is a really good example of, an update goes out and it's pretty self-explanatory what needs to be done. But yes, I think when people have had to step up to the mark, they're definitely a lot more engaging with it, for sure.
I'm prone to a segue, and we were talking about. You were just talking about the support infrastructure, the support services in the previous question a little bit. Do you think, if you take the example of a help desk, and typically people were phoning up, along the lines of, I can't remember the password, or I can't get access to this, or can you help me work out how to do X, Y, and Z? Users' confidence has grown. Do you think that is there a change of mindset yet, or do you think that there should be a change of mindset in the world of providing support services to users that says, do you know what, actually we really need to be doing more education, if you like, of that to help them get the best of the technology that they've got, as opposed to just break and fix type type attitude?
Yeah, I think we've got two aspects to that. I think it's a really good point on the support side, because some of the clients that we deal with still have that face-to-face support. So they still have guys going around and doing that support. What we are seeing now, though, which I find really encouraging, is that the training that's been put forward is being a lot more personalised. So for that organisation, And that doesn't mean just here's a manual, go and do it. It means that I've definitely seen a shift in, well, let's do some video training for some people, some CBT training for others, and actually some online training for others. And what that's really good then is that depending on your personality, whether you're visual or kinetic, then you will pick up that right training. So I do think we are seeing that definitely improving, but that's a small part in what needs to change for sure.
Mm.
I think we'll ask the last question in a second. I think there's an interesting note to Gethin and I self there with that. We've started down the road of producing, shall we say, a more rounded set of training experiences, either on the program side of what I do or on the technical side of what Geth does, where it's not just that there's your content, get on with it. It's, well, actually, here's your content, and it's in video, it's in audio, it's in we're not doing CBT as yet, but it's in some form of technology based delivery, and it feels like that's the right way to go to us. And it's kind of that's interesting that you mentioned the same sort of thing as what's been going through our mind in the last few months.
Definitely. And just for the example, we did some training on information security last year. And actually, one of the challenges we had was how do we get people on board with it? And what we actually did, and what the biggest uptake was, we created an online escape room. So we actually created it a lot more interactive because it's a boring, dull subject anyway. But actually, it was a lot more engaging. And the take up on that was far better than what we'd hoped.
Cool. I will ask that last question. I remember for a certain not-for-profit Welsh utility, I was involved with their GDPR thing, whenever that was, 2 or 3 years ago. And I wasn't leading that particular program. I was kind of doing the technology bit, but the guys on the business change side of that for that, when they came up with an escape room, obviously in that case it was in person, and I was the shows how old I am, right? I was the guinea pig on that escape room to see that the pilot of it worked along with 4 or 5 other people, and I just couldn't get to grips with it because I was going, oh, we're managing this incident. How do I manage the incident, as opposed to I've got to find the clues to get myself out of the room, because I clearly had no concept of what an escape room actually was. But anyway, right. So asking the last question in this in this part of the chat, what would you consider as the best piece of doesn't matter whether it's business or career advice that you've ever been given over the years?
Oh. It's a real cliche one. You got to do what you love. I think that's often misunderstood, that we're chasing either a role or a certain opportunity. I've been very fortunate in my career of being always able to do things that I love. But I see a lot of people doing things that they're just doing just to get a paycheck. I'm very lucky that I don't have that.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer. Cool. Thank you, Alistair. Well, that brings us to the end of part 1 of this PHIT Podcast interview with Alistair Sergeant of Equantiis. We'll be back with part 2 very shortly.